I've been debating actually really hard whether I should buy the Canon R6 or the Sony A7. They're both around like the same price range. Just for the body, it's around $2,000. And I stumbled across a video that breaks it all down. We're gonna watch that together. I figured if I'm gonna watch it by myself, I might as well just make a video and watch it with you guys. Now let's get on with the video, bros.
This video is a comparison between the Canon R6 Mark II versus the Sony A7 IV. And I had a really hard time navigating this video because it was such an overwhelming task. Now, if you're watching this video and you're on the fence trying to decide which camera to get, that's gonna be tough because you can't go wrong with either camera. They're both pretty much the same price and they're both gonna get you amazing images and video.
Well, there's always something different between both of them. They're both two different brands. Like, there's obviously that one deciding factor whether or not one should go with the other, you know?
And I also don't think you should switch systems if you're already in Sony or Canon and you have lenses for either of those, unless you're completely unhappy shooting with it. It's just mainly going to come down to what fits your needs and the specific features. All right, with that out of the way, let's get into it. Oh, I'll also timestamp this video down below so you can jump to the parts that matter most to you. But let's start with the
Amen with that. Okay.
Body and ergonomics. They're actually both pretty similar in terms of grip depth, the way it feels in the hands. But if you have bigger hands, you're probably going to like the R6 Mark II a little more because it's just slightly taller than the A7 IV. On the A7 IV, your pinky finger is always kind of on the verge of hanging off. And when it comes to button placement, they're both pretty similar. They both have mode dials with options to have 3 custom profiles. They both have joysticks. They both have back.
I didn't want to disturb the video yet, but me and my girlfriend had went to Best Buy to check out the Canon R6, right? That is a really, really big, not big, but like, it's a beefy camera. Like, my whole hand was like, it felt like a 5-pound dumbbell just grabbing it, but had a lot of things to it. The ISO can go up to like 120,000, which is crazy, but I'm not going to disturb you guys no more.
Both have shutter and ISO dials. They're in slightly different places. I kind of prefer where the A7 IV's location is, but the A7 IV does have a few more customizable buttons. And I also like that Sony has a toggle under the mode dial to switch between video, photo, and S&Q, where the toggle switch on the R6 Mark II is actually on the far left side of the camera. They both have articulating touchscreens. They both have dual UHS 2 SD card slots, but the top slot on the A7 IV will also accept CF Express A cards, which is about double the speed of a fast UHS 2. They both have 3.5mm headphone and mic jacks. They both have USB for powering and charging the camera, and they both have HDMI, but the R6 Mark II is micro HDMI, where the A7 IV is full-size HDMI. And if you know anything about micro HDMI, it's the worst. It's so fragile and you gotta be so careful with it. But yeah, they both have really good weather sealing and that pretty much covers it. When it comes to the photo side,
okay,
I'm not really gonna spend
says semi-waterproof, okay.
A ton of time comparing image quality. The R6 Mark II is a 24 megapixel.
Okay, so this is the Canon R6?
Full frame
nice.
sensor. The A7 IV is a 33 megapixel full frame sensor. So in terms of the resolution, the A7 IV is better. And obviously,
I mean, can you guys tell the difference? I mean, the Sony one has a little bit more color on her face. I don't know, they both look good, to be honest.
A few images side by side, but outside of the resolution, neither camera's gonna be better in terms of color science. People have always loved Canon's color science, but Sony's improved their color science a lot. And I think that if you're shooting RAW, it doesn't really matter anyway because you're gonna be editing the images to look the way you want. And speaking of RAW, from what I could tell, pushing and pulling the images on either camera, I feel like the A7 IV has a little bit more dynamic range, especially when recovering shadows.
Damn, both of those cameras actually look so crispy clear, dude. That's the quality on these cameras are amazing. Oh my god. I'm just not excited about the buying like lenses and stuff like that because that's just like a whole nother camera. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's check high ISO photo.
Where there isn't really a competition between the two is the burst rate. The R6 Mark II wins hands down. If you want a camera to shoot sports, action, wildlife, it's way better. It does 12 frames per second mechanical shutter and up to 40 frames per second electronic shutter was actually impressive for a camera.
That's quick.
Range, and that puts the A7 IV to shame. It can only do 10 frames per second mechanical, and that's while you're shooting compressed RAW. If you shoot uncompressed RAW, it's more like 7 frames per second. So the R6 Mark II is way better if you need it for that. Both of these cameras have probably the best autofocus in the business. Canon has drastically improved their dual pixel autofocus, and it's using a lot more AI and processing for subject detection, and it'll actually intelligently switch between subjects if you have it set to auto, where the A7 IV doesn't really have all those cool AI autofocus technologies
that's
like the
dope.
A7 V has.
That's
but it can
nice.
still do human, bird, and animal autofocus, and it's not like it couldn't track a car or other moving subjects while using real-time tracking. It just doesn't have it in the menu. When it comes to eye autofocus, both have incredible focus and probably some of the best I've used. They pretty much always nail the eye, and it's something that you can actually trust now. And I'd probably say I trust the Sony a little more. It's a little bit more predictable and reliable, but you also have the ability to adjust sensitivity.
No, the quality on both of these cameras are just insane, dudes.
Both cameras, and they both have similar tracking zones and different tracking modes. The A7 IV was one of the first Sony cameras to get focus breathing compensation, and it's a really cool feature to have. And I also noticed that Canon implemented that as well in the R6 Mark II. Basically, it just does a small crop in to account for the breathing, and it works seamless on both as long as you're using the manufacturer's branded lenses. And with Canon, you don't have to worry because those are the only RF type lenses you can actually get. You can't get any third-party lenses, and I'll talk about that later. While we're on autofocus for photo, I kind of want to jump over to video now because I did some face and eye detection tests side by side, and you can see how they perform. So we've all seen this autofocus test comparing Canon to Sony, but the R6 Mark II actually latched onto my eye sooner from further away than the Sony did, where it started on my face. face and then switch to my eye once I got closer to the camera.
Oh yeah, you can just tell from that little scene that he did that the R6 definitely captures the eye or the face of the person quicker than the Sony one did. So that's kind of cool, because especially with the M50 Mark II, I've noticed that it locks onto my face so quick, and it does not let go either. Not even if someone passes by me quickly, it still locks onto my face, which is a really cool feature that Canon offers.
And this test right here was just mainly to see which camera would actually catch my face sooner when I jumped in and out of frame. And in this situation, the Sony was actually faster than the Canon.
Sure.
But in this situation, the Canon was actually faster than Sony, so they're pretty much trading blows here. And I also use Cinematch to match the color tone on both of them, so they look pretty much exactly the same. Both of these cameras shoot awesome looking oversample 4K video. They both shoot 4K 10-bit up to 60 frames per second, but the R6 Mark II can do that in full frame, where the A7 IV has to do that with a 1.5 times crop. And that might be kind of annoying for some people. It's not ideal, especially when you're trying to figure out your lens choice, and you know you're going to be shooting 24 frames per second or 60 frames per second on the same shoot, but it's just something you have to live with if you're shooting with the A7 IV. But the thing that kind of makes up for that for me is the amount of different bit rates and codecs, as well as S-Log3. You have so many options, and there's so many different bit rates, and the image actually has more latitude over the R6 Mark II, and you can pretty much shoot in any picture profile in 10-bit, like Cinetone or standard picture profiles, where the R6 Mark II is limited to IPB and lower bit rates. And the only way to shoot.
We're gonna now check out the slow motion. I don't really see myself using slow motion, but I'm sure with these cameras, the slow motion that both of these brands offer is probably like next level. So let's check it out.
Shoot 120 frames per second slow motion 1080p, but the R6 Mark II can also shoot up to 180 frames per second. But I did find that the image was pretty soft and a little noisy and kind of looked upscaled. There's also some interesting differences here. Canon lets you shoot 120 frames per second 1080p in 10-bit, as long as you're in C-Log3, but Sony doesn't have a direct 10-bit option unless you're shooting in S&Q, where it slows the footage down in camera. If you shoot the regular 120 frames per second 8-bit, you actually get a true 120 frames per second video file that also includes the audio, where the R6 Mark II is just slowed down in camera without audio. When it comes to the in-body stabilization, the R6 Mark II has noticeably better stabilization, as long as you're not shooting with wider lenses. When you start shooting with those ultra-wide lenses, it gets a little wishy-washy in the corners. I'm sure you've probably seen that. They both have enhanced digital stabilization or active stabilization, which actually helps Sony out a little bit because Sony IBIS has never really been that strong. In some ways, I kind of like that. It does remove the jitters without looking overly robotic, like some other IBIS systems. That said, the A7 IV does have worse rolling shutter performance in full frame, so that might be an issue to some people, and that's something you have to be aware of. All right, so let's get into low light performance and take a look at some high ISO. So taking a look at 1600 ISO, they're both the same. 3200 ISO, pretty much exactly the same. 6400 ISO, you start to see a little bit more noise on both and slightly more on the Canon. At 12800, you really start to see the noise coming in on the Canon and also the image getting a little bit softer. And this is what we're going to see all the way up to 51200. You'll see a lot more noise and the image getting softer on Canon, where somehow the Sony is still maintaining its sharpness. When it comes to the menus, they're both good, and it's actually nice that they can both be navigated through the touchscreen. And I'm going to give it to Canon for the most simple and intuitive menu system that just makes the most sense. It hasn't really changed much.
That is true. Canon's menu system is just next level, dude. I can understand everything that they're trying to just give at me. Very quick to navigate to. Understandable. I love it.
From the old DSLR days. Even though Sony's menu is kind of chaotic. And
what the hell? I've never used Sony, but that looks too much for me already.
It does basically let you customize the camera in any way you want, so that's pretty cool, especially when you get the camera set up the way you want. You don't even really have to go back into the menus very often. As you can tell, they're both awesome cameras and they have different strengths and weaknesses. I obviously didn't cover everything, but I think I covered the most important things. Oh, I want to come back to the lack of third-party lenses for Canon. If you didn't know, basically Canon has blocked all third-party lens manufacturers from making autofocus lenses for the RF mount, and right now the only third-party lenses are manual focus lenses. And this kind of sucks if you're on a budget and you have any.
Oh no, bro. That's one thing I didn't want. Just like manual lenses, because the autofocus feature is so nice, especially when it just locks onto your face. Like right now I just have it locked onto my face right now. Having only manual, damn, that kind of just throws it off for me. But we're gonna keep seeing, because who knows, they might have more lenses if they unblock that feature. Canon RF 15 to 35, $2,000. Canon RF 24 to 70. That's the lens I want. 2100, not bad. Canon RF 28 to 70. Now what's the difference? 3,000, just another $1,000. So this video was made a year ago. Who's my guy to give him a shout out? Shout out to Lee Zavitz. Sorry if I butchered your name, bro. This is from where we got the video. Check out his channel if you guys want to, but let's get to the outro of the video. So we have looked at both of the cameras, right? So far we have the Canon R6 Mark II and the Sony A7. What would you guys choose? Because they're both around $2,000 without the lens. They're just the bodies. I don't know, you guys. Kind of help me out in the comments, because we definitely can't buy like outsourced lens, third-party lenses, because Canon doesn't offer that. They kind of taken that away, but Sony does. But who knows? Because I'm used to Canon. Should I just stick with Canon, or should I just try a different brand and see if I like theirs. But who knows? What would you guys recommend? What lens do you guys have for your cameras? Let me know in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. You guys have a great and amazing day. Take care, you guys.